Imagine for a moment that you are standing on a paved road in the middle of a desolate landscape. You have a bottle of water in your hand. You tilt it toward the ground, expecting the liquid to obey the invisible tether of gravity and splash at your feet. But instead, the water dances. It flows backward, climbing the incline of the road as if being pulled by an unseen magnet at the crest of the hill. You take a ball and place it on the asphalt. It doesn't roll down into the valley. It accelerates upward, defying millions of years of planetary evolution and the very equations that Isaac Newton used to define our universe. Your inner ear begins to throb. Your sense of balance, perfected by nature to keep you upright, suddenly fails. The world isn't just tilted, it's broken. Welcome to Chronicle Nexus, where today we are stepping beyond the boundaries of the known map. We are venturing into the anomalous zones, places scattered across our globe that, according to thousands of eyewitnesses, local legends, and even baffled scientists, seem to operate under a different set of physical constants. These are the locations where the compass spins in circles, where shadows fall in the wrong direction, and where the very fabric of space-time seems to have caught a snag on something we don't yet understand. Is it a massive optical illusion? Is it a quirk of magnetism? Or are we looking at genuine glitches in the matrix that prove our understanding of the laws of physics is, at best, incomplete? To understand the magnitude of what we're dealing with, we have to start at the epicenter of these phenomena. A small, circular patch of land in the Pacific Northwest of the United States, known as the Oregon Vortex. Nestled in the dense emerald forests of Gold Hill, this site has been a flashpoint of controversy for nearly a century. Long before it became a curiosity for tourists, the indigenous people of the area referred to it as the Forbidden Ground. Their horses, creatures usually attuned to the subtlest shifts in the environment, refused to enter the circle. They would rear up, eyes wide with a primal terror, sensing something that human eyes could not yet perceive. When you walk into the Oregon Vortex today, the first thing you notice isn't the visual distortion, it's the weight. Visitors frequently report a heavy, pressing sensation in the air, as if the atmosphere itself has become more dense. Or as if they are walking through invisible curtains of static electricity. But the true break in physics occurs at the House of Mystery. An old assay office that slid down the hill decades ago and now rests at a precarious angle. Inside this structure, the laws of perspective simply cease to function. Witnesses stand on level platforms, verified by spirit levels, and face one another. As they swap positions, one person appears to grow significantly taller, while the other shrinks. We aren't talking about a few millimeters of perceived difference. We are talking about visible, jarring shifts in height that defy the geometric rules of the human eye. Critics are quick to label this the Ames Room effect, a well-known psychological trick where a distorted room creates a false sense of scale. But there is a problem with the illusion explanation. It happens outside, too. Under the open sky, beneath the canopy of ancient trees that grow in strange corkscrew patterns. As if they are trying to spiral around an invisible pillar of energy, the height shifting persists. If it were merely a trick of the eye, why do cameras capture it? Why do precision instruments fluctuate? According to John Lister, a geologist and physicist who spent over 40 years researching the site until his death in 1959, the Oregon Vortex is a spherical field of force that is half above ground and half below. He conducted thousands of experiments, claiming that light in this area bends in a way that is mathematically impossible according to standard refraction laws. He believed he had found a spot where the Earth's magnetic field had collapsed into a concentrated knot, warping the very space it occupied. But Oregon isn't an isolated incident. If we travel thousands of miles east to the Spook Hills of Florida or the Magnetic Hills of India and Canada, we find the same haunting defiance of gravity. In Leh, Ladakh, there is a stretch of road on the Srinagar-Leh highway that has become legendary. Surrounded by the towering snow-capped peaks of the Himalayas, this road appears to go uphill. Travelers frequently pull their cars over, turn off the engines, and put them in neutral. Instead of sitting still or rolling backward, the vehicles begin to move forward, climbing the steep grade at speeds of up to 20 kilometers per hour. Local folklore suggests a divine intervention, a path to heaven once carved into the mountains. Modern skeptics argue it is a gravity hill illusion, where the layout of the surrounding land creates a horizon line. That tricks the brain into thinking a downhill slope is actually an uphill one. But this explanation feels hollow when you're sitting in a 2-ton SUV that is being pulled upward by a force you cannot see. Pilots who fly over the Ladakh region have reported similar anomalies, claiming that their onboard instruments go haywire. And they are forced to increase their altitude significantly to avoid being pulled toward the Earth by a localized gravitational surge. If these were just optical illusions, they would be fascinating enough. But what do we make of the physical sensations? The nausea, the vertigo, the magnetic pull that some sensitive individuals claim to feel in their very bones. This brings us to a much more sinister and scientifically baffling location, the Zone of Silence, or La Zona del Silencio, in the Mapimí Biosphere Reserve in Mexico. This isn't just a place where gravity acts strangely, it is a place where the electromagnetic spectrum seems to die. In 1970, an American Athena missile launched from White Sands Missile Range went wildly off course. It didn't just miss its target, it was seemingly drawn toward the Zone of Silence, crashing in the heart of the desert. When recovery teams arrived, they discovered that their radios didn't work. The airwaves were flat. No signals could enter or leave the zone. Since then, the Zone of Silence has become a hotbed for reports of anomalous phenomena. Witnesses claim that the stars look different there, larger, more vibrant, yet shifting in positions that don't align with the celestial calendar. Large metallic spheres have been found embedded in the desert floor, and travelers frequently report timelessness, a phenomenon where they enter the zone at noon, walk for what feels like 20 minutes, and emerge to find that 6 hours have passed. Is it possible that these law-breaking locations are actually intersections of something much larger? Some theoretical physicists working on the fringes of string theory and M theory suggest that our universe might be a brane, a 3-dimensional membrane floating in a higher dimensional space. Usually, these dimensions stay separate, but perhaps due to some geological or cosmic fluke, these membranes occasionally touch. In those spots of contact, the physics of a higher dimension might bleed into ours. In a 4-dimensional or 5-dimensional environment, up and down might be interchangeable. Time might not flow linearly. Perspective might be a fluid concept rather than a fixed rule. As we look deeper into these sites on Chronicle Nexus, we have to ask, are we seeing the limitations of our eyes, or are we seeing the limitations of our science? In the late 19th century, Lord Kelvin famously stated that there was nothing new to be discovered in physics, and that all that remained was more precise measurement. Then came Einstein. Then came quantum mechanics. Each time we think we have the laws figured out, nature presents us with a vortex or a zone that laughs at our hubris. Think about the way light behaves in these areas. In the famous mystery spot in Santa Cruz, California, there are reports of microgravity pockets where objects can be leaned at impossible angles without falling. If you take a pendulum and swing it inside the vortex, it doesn't move in a consistent arc. It moves in an elliptical, jerky motion, as if it is fighting against a current of invisible water. If gravity is a constant, 9.8 meters per second squared, then these variations shouldn't exist. Yet they are documented by thousands of amateur videos and seasoned researchers alike. Some argue that these sites are located over massive deposits of magnetic or other rare minerals that distort the Earth's natural magnetic field. This would explain why compasses fail. It might even explain why animals feel uneasy, as many species rely on magnetoreception to navigate. But it does not explain the visual growth of human beings. It does not explain why water flows uphill. It does not explain why, in some of these zones, people report seeing ghostly versions of themselves walking a few feet ahead, as if light is being delayed or looped by a temporal distortion. The deeper we go into this mystery, the more we realize that these locations aren't just roadside attractions or tourist traps. They are cracks in the porcelain of our reality. They are reminders that the universe is far more haunted by complexity than our textbooks dare to admit. From the ancient stones of Stonehenge, where some claim the very rocks hum with a frequency that can stop a digital watch, to the modern-day anomalies of the Hoover Dam, where the upward draft is so strong it can send water flying into the sky. The Earth is screaming at us that we don't know nearly as much as we think we do. In the next part of our journey, we will investigate the shadow people often seen in these zones and the terrifying possibility that these areas aren't just breaking the laws of physics. They might be gateways to somewhere else entirely. We will look at the classified government studies that attempted to weaponize these vortices, and the explorers who went into the zone of silence and never came back out. Reality is a thin veil, and in these places, that veil is beginning to tear. Stay with us here at Chronicle Nexus as we peel back the layers of the impossible. To understand how a place can defy the fundamental laws of nature, we must first travel to a desolate patch of the Chihuahuan Desert in Mexico, known ominously as the Mapimi Silent Zone. It was here, in 1970, that the world first realized some parts of our planet operate on a different set of rules. When a U.S. Air Force Athena rocket launched from Green River, Utah, inexplicably veered hundreds of miles off course and plunged into the heart of the zone of silence, it wasn't just a navigational error. It was as if the Earth itself had reached up and snatched the missile out of the sky. NASA and the Mexican government scrambled to recover the debris, but what they found was more disturbing than a technical malfunction. Within this specific perimeter, radio signals simply cease to exist. Waves that should travel for miles are swallowed by the atmosphere. Compasses spin in frantic, useless circles, unable to find north, as if the magnetic pole had been replaced by a localized, swirling void. But it's not just the hardware that fails. Witnesses who have spent time in the zone report a crushing sense of isolation. A silence so profound it feels physical, a weight pressing against the eardrums. But the silence is not empty. Locals and researchers have long whispered about the visitors. These aren't your typical extraterrestrial descriptions. Eyewitnesses describe 3 tall, fair-haired beings who appear out of nowhere in the middle of the desert. They speak perfect Spanish, ask for water from local ranchers, and then vanish into the shimmering heat haze without leaving a single footprint in the sand. When asked where they come from, they simply point upward, not to the stars, but to the sky itself, as if they are stepping through a door we cannot see. This brings us to the terrifying concept of vile vortices. In the 1970s, biologist Ivan T. Sanderson identified 12 areas around the globe where the fabric of space-time appears to be stretched thin. These include the famous Bermuda Triangle and the Dragon's Triangle near Japan. But the Mappy-Me silent zone and others like it suggest a global grid of anomalies. These are points where the Earth's electromagnetic field doesn't just fluctuate, it collapses. What happens when a government realizes it can't explain a location? It tries to own it. Declassified documents hint at Project Stargate and other fringe military initiatives that moved beyond psychic spying into the realm of geophysical manifestation. During the height of the Cold War, there were rumors of secret installations built near these vortices. Not to study them, but to use them as a blind spot for global surveillance. If you can hide a laboratory inside a zone where no radio, satellite, or radar signal can penetrate, you have the ultimate fortress. One such whistleblower, a former contractor who claimed to have worked near the Oregon vortex, described experiments involving phase shifting. He alleged that by pulsing specific low-frequency waves into the center of a magnetic anomaly, researchers could momentarily make solid objects lose their density. He described a shimmering effect, where the air would ripple like water, and objects placed within the ripple would become translucent. The goal was simple: to weaponize the very distortion of reality. If you could tune a soldier or a vehicle to the frequency of the vortex, they would be invisible to the world, existing in a state of partial displacement. But nature has a way of fighting back against those who try to harness its glitches. The annals of these zones are filled with the names of explorers who thought they could map the impossible. Take the case of the missing researchers in the Bennington Triangle of Vermont. Over a span of 5 years, people vanished without a trace, often in broad daylight and in front of witnesses. In one chilling account from 1946, a young woman was walking a trail just yards ahead of her companions. As she rounded a bend, she simply disappeared. There were no tracks, no struggle, and no body was ever found. Search parties, including the FBI, combed the area with heat-seeking technology, only to find that the heat signatures they were picking up weren't human. They were cold spots, pockets of air 30 degrees colder than the surrounding forest, hovering in place like invisible ghosts. Physicists who dare to look at these witness accounts often point to the Hutchinson effect, a phenomenon where highly complex electromagnetic fields cause the levitation of heavy objects and the jellification of metals. While mainstream science struggles to replicate this in a lab, the Earth seems to be doing it naturally in these forbidden zones. In the Hoover vortex of the American Northwest, witnesses have seen stones lift off the ground and drift upward as if gravity had simply forgotten them. Trees in these areas grow in spiraling, twisted patterns, following the invisible corkscrew of the magnetic field. Even the local wildlife seems altered. Tortoises in the zone of silence have mutated shells, and birds have been seen falling from the sky. Their internal navigation systems fried by the sheer intensity of the ground's energy. The deeper we go, the more it becomes clear that these places aren't just broken. They are functioning according to a geometry we don't yet understand. If you look at a map of these anomalies, they align with ancient ley lines, the veins of the Earth described by cultures thousands of years ago. Is it possible that our ancestors knew something we've forgotten? That they built their monuments on these sites not out of superstition, but as plugs or anchors to keep the veil from tearing further? Consider the gravity hills found in parts of India and Scotland. Here, cars left in neutral don't roll downhill. They are pulled up the incline. Skeptics call it an optical illusion, a trick of the horizon. But how do you explain the liquid? If you pour water on the road, it flows upward, defying the very force that keeps our planet in orbit. This isn't a trick of the eye. It's a localized failure of the Newtonian universe. In these moments, the laws of physics are not just being bent, they are being rewritten in real time. But the most haunting aspect of these physics-breaking zones isn't the levitating rocks or the dead radios. It's the lost time. Almost every survivor of a vortex encounter reports a discrepancy in their internal clock. A hiker might step into a clearing, watch a strange light for 5 minutes, and step back out only to realize that 3 days have passed in the outside world. This suggests that these areas are not just affecting space, but time itself. We are talking about temporal anchors, places where the river of time hits a whirlpool and stands still. If these zones are indeed gateways, as some classified studies suggest, the question remains, where do they lead? And more importantly, what is looking back at us from the other side? We've heard the stories of the tall strangers and the vanished hikers. But there are darker accounts, reports of shadow entities that flicker in and out of existence, seen only in the periphery of the eye. They seem to congregate where the magnetic field is most unstable, feeding off the energy or perhaps guarding the entrance. As we move toward the final layer of this mystery, we have to ask ourselves, are these zones natural accidents of a chaotic planet, or are they intentional? Are they the back doors of our reality, left open by whatever or whoever constructed this universe? The government knows more than it's letting on, and the explorers who returned changed, carry a terrifying secret in their eyes. They've seen what lies beneath the veil. In the final part of our journey, we will descend into the most dangerous anomaly of all, a place so volatile that it has been wiped from modern maps. And we will reveal the final, staggering connection between these zones and the true nature of human consciousness. The laws of physics are crumbling, and the ground beneath your feet might not be as solid as you think. Stay tuned as we conclude this investigation into the places that shouldn't exist. Yes, they've seen what lies beneath the veil. In the final part of our journey, we will descend into the most dangerous anomaly of all, a place so volatile that it has been wiped from modern maps. And we will reveal the final, staggering connection between these zones and the true nature of human consciousness. The laws of physics are crumbling, and the ground beneath your feet might not be as solid as you think. Stay tuned as we conclude this investigation into the places that shouldn't exist. Deep within the uninhabited stretches of the Gobi Desert, tucked between shifting sands and jagged, unnamed peaks, lies a coordinate that officially does not exist. If you were to look at high-resolution satellite imagery from 20 years ago, you might have seen a peculiar distortion. A shimmering, blurred smudge in the landscape, roughly the size of a small city. Today, that smudge has been digitally scrubbed, replaced by generic textures of sand and rock. This is what whistleblowers and rogue geologists call Sector 4 Delta, or more colloquially, the glass floor. Witnesses who have ventured near the perimeter of this zone describe a sensation that defies every biological instinct. It begins with a silent hum, not a sound you hear with your ears, but a vibration you feel in your marrow. As you cross the invisible threshold into the zone, the sun begins to behave erratically. It doesn't move across the sky. It pulses. Shadows don't cast according to the light. They stretch toward you as if they are reaching out from the ground. But the most terrifying physical anomaly reported at the glass floor is the inversion of weight. One former military contractor, speaking under the veil of anonymity, described a mission to recover a downed drone within the sector. He claimed that as his team approached the center, their equipment began to drift upward. Not because of wind, but because gravity had become selective. He watched as a 3-ton armored vehicle simply tipped into the air, hovering 6 feet off the ground like a leaf on a pond. When they tried to walk, their footsteps felt like they were pushing against a thick, invisible liquid. The air itself became viscous, shimmering with a prismatic hue that shouldn't exist in a dry desert. This is where physics stops being a set of laws and starts becoming a suggestion. But why was this place wiped from the maps? The answer lies in what the witnesses found at the very center of the distortion. They didn't find an alien craft or a secret laboratory. They found a rift, a vertical tear in the fabric of the local atmosphere that looked like a jagged mirror reflecting a world that wasn't ours. Through this rift, witnesses reported seeing a landscape of impossible geometry, where colors impossible to describe flickered in and out of existence. It was as if the source code of our reality had been corrupted, and the engine of the universe was showing its raw, unedited gears. This leads us to the most profound and disturbing realization of our investigation, the connection between these physical anomalies and the human mind. Why is it that every witness, from the sailors in the Dragon's Triangle to the hikers in the Zone of Silence, reports the same psychological symptoms? Intense euphoria followed by crippling dread, a sudden download of information they couldn't possibly know, and a total loss of the sense of time. New theories in quantum biology suggest that the human brain is not just a processor of information, but a biological antenna tuned to a specific frequency of reality. These forbidden zones are places where the local magnetic and gravitational constants fluctuate so wildly that they detune the human consciousness from the standard physical world. In these zones, the observer effect is amplified. In quantum mechanics, the mere act of observing a particle changes its state. In Sector 4 Delta, it seems the act of observing reality actually shapes it. Witnesses have reported that their thoughts became manifest within these zones. If a researcher felt an overwhelming fear of fire, the air around them would spontaneously combust. If they focused on a specific person, a phantom image of that person would appear in the distance. This suggests a terrifying possibility. These anomalies are not broken parts of the world. They are the real world, the raw, plastic state of the universe before our consciousness filters it into the solid reality we think we know. The governments of the world have spent billions to suppress this information, not just to hide advanced technology, but to prevent the collapse of societal order. If the general public realized that the laws of physics are merely a consensus of the mind, a collective hallucination upheld by our shared perception, the very foundation of our civilization would dissolve. These zones, like the one in the Gobi or the depths of the Marianas Trench, are the leaks in the system. They are the cracks in the dam, showing us that the water on the other side is rising. As we look back at the accounts we've covered, the temporal slips, the gravity-defying monoliths, and the zones where time flows backward, a pattern emerges. We are living on a planet that is far more mysterious and fragile than our textbooks dare to admit. These places break every law of physics because they exist at the intersection of multiple dimensions, serving as bridges to the unknown. But the most important witness in this entire story is you. Why are you drawn to these mysteries? Perhaps it's because a part of your own consciousness recognizes the truth. You feel the hum. You sense that the world around you is just a thin veil, and that somewhere, just beyond the map, the rules don't apply. The ground beneath your feet may feel solid today, but as we've seen, that is an illusion that can be shattered in an instant. We have reached the end of this particular journey, but the search for the truth never truly stops. The anomalies are still out there, waiting in the shadows, defying the logic of men and the equations of scientists. They remind us that we are small, but they also remind us that we are part of a vast interconnected mystery that is waiting to be solved. Thank you for venturing into the unknown with us. If you felt the chill of the unexplained and want to dive deeper into the mysteries that define our existence, make sure to support our investigation. Your curiosity is the fuel that keeps this light burning in the dark. Don't forget to like this video and subscribe to Chronicle Nexus to stay updated on our latest deep dives into the strange, the forbidden, and the impossible. Join our community of seekers as we peel back the layers of reality, one mystery at a time. Share your own experiences or theories in the comments below. Have you ever encountered a place that shouldn't exist? We want to hear your story. This has been another exploration into the fringes of the known world. Until next time, keep your eyes on the horizon and your mind open to the impossible. This is Chronicle Nexus, signing off. Stay curious, stay vigilant, and remember, just because it's on the map doesn't mean it's real.